This is Troy Stovall. I'm the Chief Executive Officer and Executive Director for TEDCO. And I'm here today as part of TEDCO Talks, our weekly series talking to thought leaders in Maryland. And today I am so happy to welcome my Oklahoma buddy and Oklahoma colleague, Ben Birge, who runs the Anne Arundel Economic Development Corp. Ben, thanks for taking your time out to talk to us today.
My pleasure, Troy. Great to be here.
Yeah. So I was looking at Ben's background when we first met. We both have an Oklahoma connection. Ben, he and I both spent some time in the Sooner State, and we were first reflecting on the Sooner State. And particularly this week, given all the politics, the Sooner State hasn't changed much since my time there. But it's still good to kind of see what's going to happen the rest of this week, and we'll see over the next couple of days and weeks as this thing plays out.
Yeah, it really is an interesting stay up really late kind of week, and but you're right. There's interesting aspects in Oklahoma that haven't changed in the decades since I was there. Some things that have changed dramatically, but I tell you, I still enjoy going back there once in a while and catching up with my friends.
Same here, man. You're right. I mean, I spent time in Oklahoma City, and I was there when Oklahoma City. The joke was downtown Oklahoma City shut down at 3 o'clock. You didn't even have to wait till 5 o'clock. But now, you got all the stuff they've done there in the brickyard area, and along the river. So it's amazing.
Yeah, none of that was there when I was there, and it's. Just seeing the pictures of it, it's hard to imagine that that's the same place
exactly.
that I drove through, and that but it's great to see a really concerted, everybody pushing in the same way economic development project like that. It blows me away whenever I see something that's structured and that organized, especially in a place that has struggled economically for so many decades.
No, well, that's a great segue to what we want to talk about today. Talk about Anne Arundel, obviously your leadership at the Anne Arundel Economic Development Corp. and the partnership with TEDCO. But I do want to start with something a little bit lighter. Anne Arundel is clearly known as the county that's the home of the state capitol and the home of Annapolis and the home of the Navy Academy. But tell the viewers and our listeners kind of a couple of things about Anne Arundel that they may not be aware of about Anne Arundel County.
So Anne Arundel really is a fascinating place when you think of the tremendous kind of urban population densities we have in our northern and central parts. When you think of Glen Burnie and Brooklyn Park and places like that, and you go into South County and it's farms and it's agriculture and just the incredible diversity of the county. But one thing that's interesting that a lot of people may not know is we have over 500 miles of shoreline in the county. You think of all of our peninsulas, our 5 main peninsulas, and a lot of those peninsulas have little peninsulas, and some of those little peninsulas have even more peninsulas, and there's creeks and there's rivers, and most of the border we have with other jurisdictions is water, and it's really an interesting county. And when you think of that kind of geography, it makes for interesting challenges in this kind of work, because you really have to be able to adapt and adopt and be flexible to the incredibly different business needs, whether it's a farmer in South County or it's Northrop Grumman, and everything in between.
So stay on that, Ben, if you don't mind. So getting kind of into what you do including your leadership role there with the Development Corp, how that diversity influences the reason that you took the job and kind of your thinking in terms of how you're going to take advantage of that.
Sure. So I'm really lucky that I inherited a really, really good team. And they are structured organizationally to meet a lot of these demands. So we have an ag team, our agriculture team is part of our business development team, who works just on agricultural issues, on our grant programs to the farms, on trying to develop our farmers markets, we just had a legislative victory just very recently on agritourism. So we do programs that both help generate revenue for farmers, but also to offset costs to farm through some of our grant programs like tire removal and rental equipment and things like that. So it works both sides of the ledger for them. At the same time, I have people who have in their portfolio whose area of expertise is technology and cyber. So we're able to work with the defense industry and all of the business sector, the tech and cyber sector that work in that area around Fort Meade. We also are big into transportation and distribution, being the home to BWI Thurgood Marshall Airport, close to the Port of Baltimore. In fact, going back to one of the things people may not know about Anne Arundel County is there is a small portion of the Port of Baltimore that's actually in Anne Arundel County.
That is news.
So the automobile portion on that side of the river is actually in Anne Arundel County. So we're big into logistics and warehousing, and now as a result of the pandemic, with e-commerce taking off, that's become huge, and we've been very well positioned to handle a lot of that additional growth in that industry. And then we have also expertise in our smaller businesses, our small businesses in retail. So it's all of those different aspects of the county. We already had a team set up to manage those different areas, and our financing program. So our finance team is there. But one major area and one tactical area I'm looking for us to play a bigger role in. Even though we've always had programs for minority and women-owned businesses, I still think that there is a misperception, that AAEDC mainly is geared towards the big businesses, the mega employers, your defense contractors, your developers, and those types. And I think that the smaller minority and women-owned businesses might not know that we already have programs that are available to them. So we're going to take a lot of those programs, repackage them, and add a little bit of extra specified training specifically for those types of businesses, and build a minority business toolbox. And again, it's for minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, others like veteran-owned businesses. And again, that's not a major structural change, but we want to repackage it, kind of like a lot of folks understand how community colleges work. They create degree programs without adding new classes. They just repackage them, reconfigure them. We want to do something like that to draw more attention and get more involvement from our minority and women-owned business community. And we think by doing that and by promoting it and marketing it as something special for them, that we can get them more engaged.
That's outstanding.
So that's the organizational side. On a tactical side, Anne Arundel County for generations really has always had a lot of appeal to businesses and to residents. At the same time, I think what that has done, and this is just my theory personally, is it's created a bit of inertia, so that we have not had the same urgency to go out and recruit big businesses and things like that. They just seem to come, and that's great. I'm not upset about that at all. But at the same time, if we're going gangbusters like that so much, why do we still have food deserts? Why do we still have communities that don't have sufficient restaurants or sufficient diversity of retail? So working with my team, we're developing a very targeted attraction strategy so that we can go into particular areas, find out what they need, and then develop smaller attraction strategies just for them. As an organization, we've never had a grand global attraction strategy because, again, we always seem to do pretty well. But we don't do well everywhere. And I think that and again, this goes back generations. I think the mindset in the county is we don't need to attract, everything's fine, and that's great if you're in Annapolis or you're in Crofton. But if you're in Brooklyn Park, if you're in Maryland City and Russet, if you're in parts of downtown Glen Burnie, maybe not so much. So let's try and have a smaller attraction strategy for each of those areas that's tailored to meet their needs.
That's outstanding. Remind us how long you've been at Anne Arundel?
July 1st of this year.
That's what I thought. So you dropped in right smack in the middle of this thing we now call the COVID pandemic, the public health, the racial tension, now the political challenge, the economic challenge. So you decided to change jobs and take on the job of economic development in the middle of all that and more. So tell us, I get many of us like, no, kind of what made you think about doing that? And more importantly, how has COVID maybe changed some of the things you just talked about and how that has impacted what you want to do?
So I always like a challenge, obviously. And this would, if you go back over my career, you would see that this would be a fairly typical change for me. I always seem to wander into a new job or a new assignment that is undergoing a lot of change and is looking to reshape itself. Even when I came from my previous position in the county as chief administrative officer, it was a brand new administration. So I was basically building that structure from scratch. And now when we had a change in leadership at AAEDC, we were having discussions in the Pittman administration, a couple of our leadership staff meetings about what does this administration's version of an economic development corporation look like? Mm-hmm. The county executive does not believe, and this is a quote from him, he will always say that the success of a jurisdiction should not be measured by the size of its tax base, but on the health and wellness of its citizens. I said that so smoothly. It's because I've said it a million times, because he has said it a million times, and I support that. So I helped craft, or I was in the process of crafting, what the new sort of the job description for the next AAEDC leader would be. And we were working on, okay, these are the things we want that person to do. This is what the job description looks like. I drafted the job description. I did all that. And the county executive says, well, you're the only one who understands this. So congratulations. So
you wrote your own job. You wrote your own job description.
No good deed goes unpunished.
Exactly.
Right. And believe me, you're not the only one to give me some ribbing for getting involved in economic development during a global pandemic. It's so really, this administration sees economic development a certain way, and it's not your dad's economic development corporation. It's also not completely different from what this team has already been doing, which has been the incredible amount of time working directly one-on-one with businesses. I compare it to the constituent services office in the county exec's office, except instead of dealing with county residents, it's county businesses, taking their calls directly, helping them with different problems, whether it's helping them with the permitting process or getting them in touch with some of our finance programs or our mentoring programs, or just answering questions about how to be successful or why is this way and things like that. So the workflows and the relationships, those things are already there, but certainly taking us in a direction of focusing on underserved communities. I want to draw a little bit more attention to that as this organization moves forward while I'm here. Gotcha.
You mentioned a few minutes ago the structure. You talked about your team, and obviously you're very proud of your team. And you talked about the structure of it with the tech and the cyber and the ag. And clearly, we've partnered with you through TEDCO, and we appreciate that partnership. But talk about as you talk about what you're trying to get done, and how both technology is going to help you do that, and then obviously some of the roles that TEDCO can help do that as well, can help you do those things.
Yeah, I think that So I'm old enough to remember back when TEDCO was created, back when I was working as a legislative analyst. And it, as far as I can tell, in my position here, the reason TEDCO was created in terms of working with counties, it is exactly as I recall as it was supposed to be, which is, in addition to having the statewide perspective, but working with jurisdictions on the different business development aspects. And certainly TEDCO has been an incredible partner in helping us identify or steering businesses to us that would benefit from the tools that we and the programs that we provide, working really well together in terms of if we have something we think a business would be better off working with TEDCO, we easily hand it off to TEDCO and vice versa. And it's very seamless, and it's been working great. And certainly with our very robust technology, tech cyber ecosystem that we have in the county, that's an incredibly important relationship for us to have. And just being able to have those relationships, not just as organizations, but the staff know each other well. It's very phone call, sharing of information, sharing of leads, and really being able to pass businesses off back and forth that's in the best interest of the business. Mm-hmm. That clearly, in my few months here, clearly is always at the forefront, is what's in the best interest of that company. Is it our program or is it your program? And then maybe when you're done, it's back to being us. And there doesn't seem to be any ownership of who gets credit for this or that. It's all just making businesses successful. And that's, I know with the team you have and with the team I have, whether that's working with TEDCO or we're just working individually, everybody moving in that direction. I have not seen anybody at any point have any concern about who gets credit for a business being successful.
No, I want to emphasize that point, kind of in my role as the CEO. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I've said it to you. I've said it to everyone I can speak to. I'm not looking for the press, the press release from us, or to me, the press release is XYZ Maryland company became successful. And that's the only press that I care about. And so as long as we all kind of have that, I think we all can make this work better for the citizens of Maryland, which brings to really, we both talked about this notion of diversity and inclusion. And I want to tie that to something you said about, some of the deserts that you have, the retail deserts, the food deserts that you have there in Anne Arundel County. How do you, what are some things that you're thinking about in terms of how to bring, because that's a challenge a lot of places, so how do you kind of look at ways to try to address that maybe either leveraging what some other of your colleagues are doing across the state or even across the country maybe, but maybe even being a forerunner to try to address some of these challenges?
That's a great question, because it really tees up the first part of responding is education. Mm-hmm. We have to understand, or we have to understand what a community wants. The community also has to have an understanding of how the process works. So as part of our attraction strategy template, one of the first things we focus on is educating the community. Make sure you understand what it is you're asking for. Make sure that this is what fits in with the not only the desires and demands, but also the long term of that area. And as in economic development, the only thing I can promise we can do is work our tails off. I can't promise you that another business will ever show up, but we're going to do everything we can. So what we're working on right now is explain to the community what we do, the programs we have, the data analysis we're willing to do, the places we're willing to go, and the doors we're willing to knock on to have those conversations. But at the same time, I don't have the resources, the staff, nor the time to knock on every single door.
Yep.
So let's talk about what you really want, what we think that how that need can fit into this community, how, well, maybe let's not focus on that because just down the road, someone else already has that, and it might be difficult to get another one in here. But let's try and make our targets realistic, but aggressive at the same time. Like, let's work very hard to achieve them. So that's one aspect, is education.
Yep.
The next aspect is being strategic. It's, again, you want to double my staff and triple my budget, I'll be on every doorstep out there. But when there are conference opportunities, when there are meeting opportunities, when there's an opportunity for us to be in the room with an organization, a business, anybody that we think can help deliver some of these types of businesses to those communities, we want to know about it so we can be there. We're not going to just show up and waste time meeting and greeting.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go into these with strategies, with desired outcomes, and we're going to work to achieve it. But also it's also working with our county sister agencies to make sure that if we're going to bring in this type of business, are we zoned appropriately to do it? If we're going to develop over here, are we zoned appropriately? Do we have water and sewer? Do we have enough water and sewer and electrical infrastructure for data centers? I don't know that unless I pick up the phone. So we need to always be communicating on these issues to make sure that what we're asking for is not only achievable, but if we're allowed to do it. If I don't want to make all these promises and then find out that our general development plan is just concluded and we can't zone for that type of business or something like that. So a lot of moving parts.
There's a lot of moving parts. And how is COVID? I mean, has COVID, for those challenges, exasperated them or just more readily exposed them?
So in a little bit of both. I think it's certainly made it very challenging for new restaurants and retail to get off the ground. We're just trying to keep them from shutting down. Let's start there. At the same time, everybody's getting used to communicating electronically. So we're having more meetings and more communication than we did before. Getting somebody on a call or on a Zoom call is 1,000 times easier now, right or wrong. But if we're talking about engaging with a prospective business who, even in a best case scenario, probably wouldn't be able to move into a new location within 6 to 12 months anyway, at best, this is the time to talk to them. I think this is going to seem like an unrelated anecdote, but I kind of read between the lines on this. So one of the big conferences a lot of people know about out in Las Vegas, the ICSC conference, shopping centers, retail, restaurants, developers, all kinds. Obviously, they canceled the 2020 meeting, rightfully so. And they've already postponed the 2021 meeting from May to December. Right. So to me, what that signaled to me was not so much we think it'll be healthy to travel by then. What it said to me is we think there's still room for retail to grow by then, and that we're not taking the prospects for retail. We still see signs of life out there. And we think that by that time, we'll be back to being able to meet. Now, I don't know if we'll be able to do that or not, but certainly that's a time horizon that we could be working now, between now and then, to start laying that groundwork, because these are, setting up businesses is time consuming. I don't have to tell anybody that, but I think that the way we have changed the way we communicate, the ways we've been able to do some of the application processes that go into starting a business, making those things more electronic, I think if it hasn't helped now, it has accelerated the process for making government and in some ways economic development faster in the future because of these new processes we're having to invent now just to get by.
So let's dig on that, because it's a quick example of a small example that I like to use to talk about behavioral change. That's what we're talking about, is behavioral. Because of COVID, and look, after 9/11, before 9/11, you and I are old enough to remember you could walk up to a plane and get on the plane in 5 minutes. After 9/11, that normal turned into you had to be there an hour and a half, and we had words introduced like 3-ounce bottle and TSA and all that other stuff. So there's going to be a new normal that's going to emerge out of whatever it is, and like you're saying. So an example, for instance, for me, and I think it ties a little bit into what you're talking about. My wife and I were out dining, or two examples. We were out dining, and the restaurant menu was a QR code. We had to use our cell phone to bring the menu up. And we even had to pay. You even paid. They didn't have you paid through your phone. So it was completely contactless with the server. And then the other example, though, is like she and I were trying to go out to eat one night, and it was a decent restaurant, and you needed a reservation. You couldn't, you just couldn't episodically say, hey, let's, like tonight, Friday night, if we want to go out and eat tonight, we probably couldn't unless we want to order it in. But if we want to go sit down, not possible. And so I give you those two examples to, one, see if you agree, but B, what B is the role that technology is going to play in how we're going to do some of these interactions, as you just kind of mentioned. But C, kind of to a point you were making about not your grandfather's economic development corp, will this notion that we don't have to go into the office every day change how people think about relocation of businesses and where they put businesses in the future, and how does that impact some of your strategy?
Yeah, I think it's going to be both a very significant change, but I also think it was an inevitable change. I mean, this just, to me, in my opinion, it's just speeding things up. It's not it's not taking us in a direction we weren't hurtling towards already. That's just my opinion. So from a business standpoint, we're trying to work with businesses to make that transition. Already, when we put out our first grant program for small businesses, it was to help them in any way they saw fit to transition into a COVID environment. Is that plexiglass partitions? Fine. Is that signage and tape on the floors? Fine. Or is that buying laptops and improving your network so your staff can telework? Fine. Is it setting up so you can reconfigure your office so you have more storage for inventory to switch everything to curbside? You decide, you're the business owner, but we were focusing that program on transitioning. And I think that's going to be where our focus will be for a lot of our programs moving forward. We already have, like many organizations like ours, a lot of training programs and mentoring programs, and we're going to have to make sure that those training and mentoring programs are able to integrate the emerging out of the pandemic environment, because it's not going to be going back to normal. People like online shopping. Let's teach them how to shop locally online. Not just shop online. So how can we help our small local businesses be part of that game, and not just be the nice place to visit when you don't want to shop online with Amazon? So it's going to be a lot of new ways to market. But it's going to have to be a way to integrate small businesses that never saw themselves, never wanted to be part of the online marketplace, be able to get into the online marketplace and still keep their character.
And that's
still be appealing.
And
Yeah.
that's all innovation, right? Because, at the end of the day, obviously my job is about enhancing this innovation culture in the state. And so I hear a lot of what you're saying is, how do we bring that innovation down to helping these, these local restaurants, these local shops take advantage of the fact that things aren't going to go back to normal. They may not have, if they had a 50-seat restaurant, they may only ever seat 25 in it, but they still could have capacity to serve 1,000 because they've changed the way in which they do takeouts and curbside and all that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And a place like Anne Arundel County, which has always shown a lot of appeal to people as a place to move, will probably, if we have sufficient transportation networks in place, if people want to move there, even though they're not working there, or vice versa, where places like distribution centers can be located, even though the management and a lot of the staff aren't living there or working in that building because of so much automation, so much online movement and things like that. We need to be prepared for all those things. I think that 20 years ago, there was a lot of literature on virtual businesses, not just online, but distributed.
Yep.
Where people are literally living all over the world. It's a different way to manage. It's a different way to work. It's a different way to evaluate your staff. It's not just an extended snow day where you're working from home. It is a completely different business model. And organizationally, we're going to be changing to that. I've been preaching teleworking for 15 years. So this is, I feel like I finally have come off of a road game and I'm playing at home now. and so, but it's different. It's not the same.
Yep.
And we have to train ourselves to work differently. It's going to take years to turn that big tanker around because those big ships don't turn quickly. And we have to be patient and we have to train and we have to go through those growing pains, and so does the business community. But we can't pretend that if there was an end of the pandemic tomorrow, that everything goes back to the way it was, because a lot of things that have happened since then, people are getting used to and they kind of like it.
On that, I was talking to folks and we were going over a study with the folks on the shore, and clearly Anne Arundel is, if I would say, the gateway to the shore, given the connection with the bridge, that people are starting to make a move away from urban areas. And actually they were talking on the shore that their housing inventory is almost sold out. Is sold out because there's such an influx. And the question to you is more, are you think you're going to see some redistribution of talent into some more rural areas, and how does that impact some of the things that you're thinking about in your strategy?
So, I mean, I think that's very possible. I think that the amenities that we offer in Anne Arundel County, I'm not too worried about that. One thing that we know that a lot of the businesses, especially when you look at tech and cyber, are always not going to want to be too far from Fort Meade. It's like I like to tell people, I have Fort Meade and you don't. and it's the state's largest employer, and it's location. It still matters. Now, I grew up in LA. You don't have to tell me about people driving hours to go from work to home. That's going to happen. Anne Arundel County has traditionally been a net exporter of jobs. So we have more people with jobs than we actually have jobs in Anne Arundel County. So people travel out of the county a lot to go to work more than people come here to work. So I'm not too worried about that. That has not disrupted the stability of our economy in any way. And really, it is a very stable economy in our county. We have 9 to 10% of the population of the state, but during this pandemic now, we're only about 5.5 to 6% of the new unemployment claims. So And we have been trending below the statewide average in all of those employment metrics since the beginning. So we've come out of it stronger overall than most jurisdictions, certainly to the statewide average. So we're always going to have a high floor. We've proven to have a high floor over the years, and I don't think commuting patterns are the make or break issue for us.
Gotcha. You didn't mention it, but you did mention all your shoreline. How has tourism been impacted through this?
It's been pretty devastating. The Annapolis Boat Show is, I love the boat show. Yeah, that's a great event. What a huge loss. And they're already talking about what they're going to do for the next one and how they're going to pivot. What's the next boat show look like? So tourism's taken quite a beating. At the same time, we still seem to be doing okay on sort of the 1 or 2 night stay kind of day trip, weekend trip kind of things. But certainly with the restrictions on on restaurants, on retail, and where you can do, certainly places like downtown Annapolis, which are used to having packed bars and restaurants on weekends, pretty much 52 weekends a year. And when you factor in that once the legislative session starts, a lot of, there won't be nearly as many people in Annapolis, the way they're going to be structuring the legislature. So that's going to cut into a lot of business. So it's the professional tourism of the legislative session, 90 days of professional tourism, but also the summer tourism, the school groups and day camp groups that come in. It's really had a huge impact.
Right.
Which is why we're working so hard to keep our agritourism side going, to get those special events out at farms to help the farms supplement their income. Try and keep some of those things up and going.
Explain to folks agritourism.
So agritourism is basically a way for farms to bring people in for some type of activity. So sometimes it's farm tours. We have some farms that have like these organic farms, which will walk people around and teach them all different kinds of plants that they can grow, that are edible, that are healthy, that help with different type of medicinal benefits and things like that. Or it could be the farm that wants to host a wedding. So we're providing these limited opportunities for farms to be able to invite people in, give them the right zoning and permission to have people come in so they can generate revenue as a destination. That's
almost like a wine country tour type of thing, but
that's exactly what it's like.
That's great. Well, look, Ben, I appreciate your time today. Any kind of last thoughts you want to share with our folks or share with me?
Well, first of all, I just want to reiterate that we appreciate working with TEDCO. We're happy to be a partner, not just with developing businesses, but also in our financing programs, working with the Volt program. So, and that we hope that everybody out there continues to shop local. If local means Anne Arundel County, all the better. But I think everybody is encouraging to shop local, and hopefully we can all get some programs out there to keep those going, because that's going to be the key to our small businesses staying afloat.
No, just to reemphasize that. I mean, look, I'm sitting here, I'm in Prince George's County, as we talked about. I'm here in Bowie, and my wife was sending me a list of all the restaurants that have just shut down here in Bowie, and just not as a commentary, but there was already kind of a dearth of some of that amenities here in Prince George's. And so to see the devastation that this is having in Prince George's, this is real. There's some real damage that's being done here. And so the question, as you and I think about this in our respective roles, is how do we not just build and grow, but build a different type? Because if we're just trying to restart, then we've missed the point. We've got to rethink and re-engineer what has to happen go forward. So,
yep.
So I look forward. I've enjoyed our times together, our talks together. I'm looking forward to us getting to know each other better and our organizations to continue to be strong together. So yeah, again, appreciate your time today. Just signing off for our folks. My name is Troy Lamel Stovall with TEDCO, and join us again next week for another talk with TEDCO Talks. Thanks again, Ben.
Thank you very much, Troy. Appreciate it.